How you doing? I'm Kevin O'Hara for alcoholmastery.com. Today I wanted to talk about 5 of the most motivational books that I've read about quitting drinking alcohol. Now, I'm only going to talk about one book which is specifically designed for quitting drinking alcohol, and you probably know which one that is. That's this one by Alan Carr. It's How Easy Way to Control Your Alcohol Drinking. I've read this a few times. I haven't read it in a while, but it's just one of the best books if you're looking for a book to help you to see the bullshit about alcohol. Not only the bullshit about the advertising and how it's how we view alcohol, but from the perspective of our culture and how we're brainwashed within our culture to think about alcohol in a specific way, and how that brainwashing starts from a very early age. He talks about something called the pitcher plant theory on drinking alcohol, and you know I agree with this 100%. And he says that anyone that starts drinking alcohol, they're already in that pitcher plant, so they're already in this downward spiral, and it's just the degree to where they're in it, to how deep they are, how long they've been drinking, you know, how much the behavior is taking over their life. And it's just one of degrees. So if you take it from the start of somebody's drinking, then you know they're obviously closer to the top of the pitcher plant than somebody who's been drinking for 10 years. You know what I mean? And he goes in and he talks about not only the poisoning to ourselves, to our physical selves, but he also talks about it from the poisoning of our whole lives because of this one drug. You know, I've talked about this a lot, that you can take alcohol and you can set it up against any other drug that's out there, and I think you're better off taking some of the other drugs that are out there. You know, I mean, I don't take any drugs, and I wouldn't recommend you to take any drugs because of the way that any drug is going to affect your life. But from this perspective, I mean, alcohol is just deadly. You know, just because of the place in our society, it takes away so much from our lives in general, right? You know, Alan Carr goes on to talk about the prison of alcohol, and it's a self-created, self-built prison. He talks about the acquired taste for drinking. He talks about just lots of different aspects of alcohol drinking that we take for granted, right? And he doesn't go into the bullshit. He sort of breaks apart the bullshit of calling yourself sober or calling yourself an alcoholic, or, you know, recovery and all those terms that people use for drinkers these days. I'm not sure if he talks about the disease concept. I don't think he does. But, you know, you get a feeling from his books that he doesn't agree with that. The second book I want to talk about is one from a guy called Wayne Dyer. He's passed away, I think, a couple of years ago now. But this book is called Your Erroneous Zones. And, you know, I talk about that quitting drinking alcohol, you know, the actual getting the alcohol out of your system, is just the first part of this, right? And that you have to build, rebuild, recreate yourself in many different aspects of your life once you've quit drinking alcohol, you know. In order to stay off it, you've got to, you know, you have to almost rebrand yourself, you know. And Your Erroneous Zones, that's my copy of the book. The subtitle is Bold but Simple Techniques for Taking Charge of Your Unhealthy Behavior Patterns, right? And basically, it talks about a lot of stuff like how to get rid of guilt, and how stuff like guilt and fear and anger and worry, self-rejection, living in the past, you know, they've got all these things. It's like in the shape of a man, the words there. You know, how all these things are just useless emotions, that they don't serve you well. You know, that we have emotions like this for a reason, right? And, you know, fear of rejection goes back to when we were living in a cave, right? You're living in a cave with a lot of other people, and you don't want to be rejected, because if you're rejected, you're kicked out of the cave and you're more likely to get eaten by some wild animal, right? So you don't want to do that. But today, you know, we're just surrounded by people. We're surrounded by a lot of different ideas about what is the perfect thing, what is the way to be. And there's so many different views on how you should be as a person, what you should do, how you should conduct yourself, that, you know, it's not such a life or death thing anymore, right? It's something that if you want to be a certain way, you can go out and you can find plenty of other people who follow that same lifestyle, right? And you don't have to feel guilty about any of those things. You don't have to fear being rejected. And no matter what you think, on the other end of this scale, is you're always going to be rejected by some people, right? No matter what you think, no matter what type of thoughts you have, no matter what lifestyle you live, there are always going to be people who reject you and don't agree with what you say. So, you know, it's just a great book for changing your thinking and changing your most fundamental thinking, your ideas. And I think that one book for you know, when you start out this journey, you have certain ways of thinking about alcohol in particular, right? So you think about alcohol in terms of the way it will help you to socialize, the way it will help you to sleep if that's what you use it for, the way it will help you to relax if that's what you use it for, so on and so forth, right? So we've all got these reasons and these motivations to drink, you know. If we didn't have them, we wouldn't have any problem stopping, right? So there's always a reward at the end of the day that we want to get, right? There's always a consequence that we want to get, consequences that we want to avoid. This is why we're thinking about stopping drinking. But books like this, you know, especially his early books, I mean, he's written some fairly good books in his early career. Then he started going on to a lot of he started going into Eastern philosophies a bit too deep for my likes, you know. You know, some of the stuff is good. It's enlightening. It sort of it makes you think about different things, but I think he went too far over onto the spiritual side. But in his early days, a lot of this stuff was good, and a lot of it, in all fairness, was based on rational thinking. I can't remember the guy's name now that did that, but anyway, that's another book. Easily one of the best books for finding your true self, who you want to be, finding your destiny, right? Finding the you know, building the dreams and finding that place where you can fulfill your dreams in life. And one of the best books, one of the books that I've read a lot of, is How to Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. I mean, this I've read that so many different times, and it's one of the best books that I've ever read. He talks about he did a lot of work on neuro-linguistics, so NLP, years and years ago. And a lot of his stuff is based around that theory, but a lot of it's just based on, he said that he'd read over 1,000 books on different aspects of self-help, and he's brought in the best parts of all those. And he talks about different things like belief in yourself, and how to develop self-belief, and how to get the best out of yourself, and how to, a lot of what he would say, Wayne Dyer, in this book, this guy also says. I mean, you'll see the same types of themes repeated again and again in different books. I mean, one of my other books is called Learned Optimism. I'll talk about that in a minute. And that's the same sort of a thing. All these guys are all talking about thinking first, right? And changing your thinking first in order to change what's happening on the outside. So you've got to change what happens up here first, then you change what's happening out here, right? And that's what my whole philosophy is based around, that what you focus on is what you get in life. So you can't focus on something. If you focus on something negative, like the AA do, they keep your mind focused on you being an alcoholic, that, the next thing that you have, the next drink that you have is going to lead you right back to the start again, and that you're always going to be an alcoholic. If you think along those terms, then that's exactly where you're going to get. So, if you want to, I mean, this book is very, it's a fairly thick book, goes into depth. There's a lot of different exercises and stuff like that in here. And he's one of my top go-to how-to people. He can be a bit over the top when you listen to him, but a lot of what he says, most of what he says, makes perfect sense. So that's the next one is called Learned Optimism, and it's by a guy called Martin Seligman. And this book talks about, it's called Learned Optimism, but it talks about learned helplessness as well. And this is one of the things that I feel about alcohol, that people get into the state where basically they learn to be helpless in the face of alcohol, and they just can't stop. And it's any habit, regardless of what you're doing, whether it's a drug or you're addicted to something else in life, you tend to get to a place in your life where you've been doing it for so long that you don't know anything else. You've learned to be helpless in certain situations. And like anything else in life, learned helplessness can be overcome by learning optimism, right? Learned helplessness is a form of pessimism, right? It's a form of negative thinking, that you think along a certain way about yourself and about your thinking, about your life, and about what you can do, what you can achieve and what you can't achieve. And that kind of thing is just his type of thinking. Again, it's focusing on your mind, changing your mind first, and then by changing your mind that you change your life. And the final book is The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. Now this has got a very unique and a very close place in my heart, because it's one of the first self-help books that my father gave to me. It's one of the first self-help books that I read. And again, this guy talks about, on a very basic level, how to change your life by changing your thinking. And he goes into a lot of different areas. I mean, as Tony Robbins does, as Wayne Dyer does, as Martin Seligman does, about the basics of that. When you change your life, when you change your mind and you change your thinking on that fundamental level, it is a cornerstone habit that will serve you well, no matter what it is that you're trying to do. Whether you're trying to change, you're trying to get rid of a habit, whether you're trying to bring in a new habit, whether you want to change things that are happening within your love life, your family life, your work life, so on and so forth, right? You have to change your mind first. So I haven't got that book with me, The Magic of Thinking Big. I've only got that on my iPad at the moment. So I had a copy and I lent it out to somebody and I never got it back. So it's one of the things that I never do, is lend out copies of my books. I tend to hold on to them as much as I can. Anyway, I thought I'd just give you 5 of the books that I go back to time and time again. As I say, the only book that I'd really talk about with quitting drinking alcohol would be Alan Carr's Easy Way to Control Alcohol. There's plenty of other books out there, but they tend to have there's a lot of confusion amongst the alcohol books, especially because there is no one definition of what is a problem drinker, what is an alcoholic, what is a habitual drinker, all that kind of stuff. For me, it's just gradations on the same scale, that, nobody is born to drink. Nobody is born to take drugs. Nobody is born to get addicted. I think, some people might have a more of a genetic inheritance for, getting more addicted to something, but I don't think specifically any one thing. I think, a lot of people just have more or less dopamine, for instance, in their brains. They can produce more dopamine, or they produce less dopamine, so they need to get it from somewhere else, but that's all. If you start to rely on anything like that in your life, if you start to think along those lines, then you're delivering the power outside of yourself and into something that you can't control. So everything about alcohol mastery, everything that I teach, is to pull as much power back to yourself as you possibly can. So, all of these books, most of the books that I read are nothing to do with alcohol. I mean, I love reading books about new alcohol studies. Part of the courses that I'm doing now with the Open University, I get access to a big library of just downloadable documents, scientific documents and stuff, which I love to browse over. But it's very hard reading. It's boring reading sometimes, because you're going over the same stuff over and over again. But sometimes you do get clarity on certain subjects by reading widely. And I tend to, when I'm reading that kind of thing, I skip read. I read as quickly as I can, and I skip a lot of the stuff that I'm reading. I just I know that right, and didn't know this bit, and try and skim through them as much as possible. But anyway, I'll leave it there. That's 5 of the books that I personally would recommend for motivation in any area of life, but especially in context with quitting drinking alcohol. If you have any questions at all, leave them down below in the comment section, either on YouTube or here on the website if you're on alcoholmastery.com. If you want to download our Alcohol Masteries starter pack to help you to quit drinking alcohol, there's 3 different courses, there's 3 different books, and there's some other bits and pieces in there. It's absolutely free. All you have to do is come over and leave me your name and email address, and I'll send you the details across. As I say, absolutely free, and you just come over to alcoholmastery.com and it's there on the front page. And if you come over to the blog, any of the blog posts, you'll see it come up as a pop-up every so often. So until next time, my name's Kevin O'Hara for alcoholmastery.com. Take care of yourself, keep the alcohol out your mouth, onwards and upwards. Take care. Bye now.